Hello there, and welcome to the Second Life Book Club. My name is Draxtor Dupre, and today on the show, prolific British writer Aliya Whiteley. Her book Skyward In is beautiful, and I said this before the show. I have no idea how she was able to combine this perfect pacing with such a deep examination of our humanity's core dilemma of being separated from each other, separated from our mothers, where we come out of ostensibly, and also separated from nature, and also from the past and the future. So this book has some deep themes. It's only 252 pages long. Now, fear not, this is not some dry philosophical essay. Skyward In has aliens in it, and also a bit of body horror, but in a lovable way, delivered with a lot of love. So this is a very unique book. Now, since I don't read blurbs anymore, this is a new phenomenon, and I would like you to check that out. If you read blurbs, you are um, ridding yourself from an adventure, from a discovery. I was blown away how this book started a little bit like Cheers, the place where everybody knows your name, Cheers with aliens, and then got right to, um, to kind of a Nietzsche depth. But anyway, Alia, welcome to the Second Life Book Club.
Thank you. I love your description of that. I want lovable body horror on a
I know
t-shirt.
Cherry McNally already says here in the local chat. He says lovable body horror. What are you talking about? Well, you got to pick it up. I mean, by body horror, I mean the visual, but the way you put it in there, it's an examination of love and being together. So I don't want to get further into it.
Mm,
Um,
yeah. No,
Alia,
that's a good description. Yeah.
how do you feel here in this immersive environment? Is this strange for you, or is this how does it
It's
feel to be
it's
actually
wonderful. Yeah, I'm in Skyward Inn. I'm in my own inn. Let's not all go down to the cellar. Um, where strange things happen, but it's absolutely wonderful. There's a dartboard over there.
there's a
There's
dartboard? Yeah, the
yeah.
camera can zoom out a little bit. There's a dartboard, and what else is here? A lot of different people. What is the Skyward In?
So it's a pub in the middle of nowhere on the moors in Devon, and it's a pub that's run by two veterans from opposite sides of an intergalactic war. So Earth is at war, sort of, with a planet called Keter, and an Earthling and a Ketan set up a bar together in a place which is which has kind of seceded from the war and from the coalition which runs Earth at that time to try and be a completely back to nature sort of environment.
Right, and that's what I
With
want to explore because this is fascinating. The whole world is technologically advanced. There's obviously
yes,
space travel. There are
yeah,
stargates where you can just zoom in and then you pop out the other end where this other alien civilization lives. And
mm,
these guys, they build sort of an intentional community, the Western Protectorate, that refuses to use modern technology, and it's kind of like a back to the earth, back to nature type of movement where
yes, and
the
that's
heroes
kind of
live.
it's immediately sort of romanticized and idolized by the place that it's left in a way as this experiment in what many would see as a perfect sort of life, but actually it's a life that requires a lot of hard work and many sacrifices. Um, it's not, it's far from perfect. Um, but the coalition and technology is also far from perfect. So it's about the struggle between the two of those kind of societies as well to find a way to occupy the same space.
There's so much to unpack. Before we get into it, I want to do a little reading. But before we get into the reading, and we'll have you read too, but I want to read from the very beginning. Before we do that, Shyla, please come on stage. Our co-producer Shyla is going to read right from the top from page 5.
Please.
Before we do that, camera, can you zoom back out and show our folks on the stream that the Skyward In pub is actually situated, built inside a space station? I mean, this is not how it's in the book, but we had this space station floating around here on Book Club Island, and our set designer Ruby built it inside built a traditional pub with darts, as we established, and a lot of brew inside this space station. I can see the camera zooming out, so there are long space station hallways, and they all end up inside this pub.
That's perfect, isn't it? It's perfect for the book.
It's perfect. These both worlds as you describe, and then of course the one of the heroes, the teenage son of the main protagonist, says, screw this crap. I don't want to, I want implants like these other dudes. I don't want
Yeah.
to, I don't want to dig a ditch and grow my own food and then trade with someone. I want virtual reality, augmented reality, and extended reality.
Yes. Yeah.
So now Shyla is going to read from the very beginning of the story, and this is how we get into it. Shyla, take it away.
They've drunk their drinks and sung their songs, and it's time for them to head home. I wave them off, turn my back on the first streaks of light in the sky, and close the door to the inn. Isley says, his soft, his voice soft and self-mocking, alone at last. He says it every time we've got the place to ourselves. He practiced his English on tongue base, millions of miles away, by watching old films, and sometimes I can imagine the kind of drama he thinks we're in. The lamps on the walls are burning low. I love this time, time between times. It's a soft gray bleed from night into morning. Pour, I say. I walk back to the bar and pull up the well used stool with the cracked leather top. The smell of the heaped glass ashtray between us is very strong, and I slide it to one side. The ash settles into the grooves that make a pattern around its rim. The glasses Isley pulls out are his good ones. We're getting a taste from the best bottle. I smile when I see him lift it from under the counter, an automatic reaction to that conical shape in an orange clay from his world. Special occasion? You don't remember? He pulls out the cork with his thick, blunt teeth and tips the clear liquid into the glasses. I thought you remembered everything. It's the 13th of September. It's not any anniversary I can think of, and we have drunk to them all. It's 7 years since I first told you I loved you, he says and clinks his glass against mine. That was in this bar, and I was sitting on this very seat. His chin trembled when he said it, and I remember I thought only that I wanted him to not be scared of what comes next, of where love leads. I told you I loved you too, I say. I didn't even have to think about it. The words came easily. Are they still true? He frowns into the glass he holds just below his mouth. When he drinks, the moment will be over with, done. It's impossible to feel bad with Gerald brew in your body. Everything I say to you is true, I tell him. But it sounds so unreal. So I add, at least I try to make it that way. You do try, he agrees. And that's why I still love you now. It's a good thing to drink to. We drink.
And that's Shyla reading from Skyward In. And this is actually the copy that we see here. Thank you, Shyla. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
The,
Yeah, that was great.
the copy that we see here is actually the advanced review copy that on the cover, if the camera zooms in, doesn't say Skyward In. It says, "This is a place we can be alone together." Again, I mean, these are the themes of being together and being separated. And these two characters here is Jem is the human, and Isley is the Keaton, and they
Yep.
both run this pub, and there is attraction there,
Yes. Yeah.
and there's also the brew. Now,
Yeah.
before we have you read, Alia, how would you describe? I said earlier I don't read blurbs anymore. I mean, I love to make these grand statements. But the point is, and we talked about this in the pre-production meeting, that the blurbs often, or I guess always, are not written by the author. They're written by hopefully well-meaning marketing folks. But sometimes the author is not too happy with the blurb. Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, and this doesn't have to be perfectly worded, but how would you blurb it, or how would you not blurb it? I mean, what would
See,
you
yeah.
disclose about this? Like, let's just say we're at a party and go like, "Oh, you're a writer, so what's your latest book about?"
I'm I'm absolutely dreadful at blurbs, so I'm quite glad there are marketing people out there who are able to do something with it. I think I don't want to give anything away at all. I
Hmm.
remember when I first started going to the library, I didn't like reading blurbs or finding out anything about a book, so I would just take them out and take them home and start reading. And I still want that experience to some extent. I
Hmm.
want to not know in advance. I get really annoyed when I do know in advance. So I probably would just have a blank page, which is no good at all, is it? Because you do actually have to try and tempt people into the process of reading. Um,
I feel
yeah.
exactly the same way. But what you, if somebody does approach you at a gathering of sorts and like, "Oh, you're an author. What's your latest book about?" Would you just, or would you say, "Well, you gotta go buy it, and then you'll find out."
Usually, the thing that I'm obsessed with about it is not the thing that would make much sense to anybody else. So I remember I wrote a story called Peace Pipe that ended up on the end of the US edition of The Beauty when that came out. And
Hmm.
I loved that story. But when my editor asked me what that story was about, I said it's about space badgers. And he read it and said there aren't any space badgers. But for me, there were definitely space badgers. So I would probably say it was Skyward In was about um, pieces of paper floating around on a world where they're inconsequential and also the most important thing that's ever happened there. Yeah, that
Oh,
that's kind of the first thing I think of.
that
Yeah.
is amazing. Wow. No, I'm blown away. Because well, okay, if we get there, we'll never get out of here. If we know the decipher what that actually means for me, who has read the book, and others who haven't, that is very interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
To,
I think I don't know if that's true for all writers, that the things that they're interested in the book are the things that are not necessarily what readers or marketing departments kind of cling to
hmm. Hmm.
later on or become interested in. I don't know.
Now, let's see if this quote here loads on my screen. Let me verify it on the other screen, because we got a great glimpse of your ability to write. That's always something very important to me. The ability to push out good prose. Some people are like, I don't care. I need action and plot. And I say I need language.
Mm,
Sai here actually in the local chat says that's kind of silly. Books are full of non-existent creatures and people. That's why we call it fiction.
mm,
Um, but also, I think Aliyah was talking about what is sort of where she fills in the blanks, right? Aliyah, we talked about this off the air, that you
yeah.
like to present something that leaves a lot of room to breathe for
Yeah.
people to fill in.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. The more that I fill in myself, the better for my reading experience. Yeah.
Hmm. me see if I got the right slide in here. And Jerry says, I've read a few books that disappointed because the blurb was nothing like the book. And Soup says, I'd read a book of blurbs. Soup, that is actually a great idea. I think you should publish something like that. You should just publish a book that has millions of blurbs in there.
That could
That
be really interesting, couldn't it?
absolutely. So the odd quote is here where the Keaton asks, uh, he says, "My favorite word in your language is odd. It's no good in any other language." So this is one of the aliens talking to a human and saying, the word odd is my favorite word in your language.
Yeah.
This is, I think, what the book is about the inability of language to express who we are.
I think all of my books are about that to some extent, about the gaps between how we talk to each other and what we're able to express well. Um,
Hmm.
and language is part of that, but also just in terms of bodily as well. Um, yeah, so I loved the guide as a character for being able to play around with those ideas of the differences in language. And oh, look, you've changed the quote now. And there's one there about the shoes and
Yeah, I
the
was looking
difference
for the
between.
shoes. Exactly. So this is another
Yeah,
exchange, and Foss is the young man, the teenager, and the Keaton, his guide, when he goes to Kita, to the alien planet, the Keaton asks him, "What are those?" And then Foss says, "Shoes." Shoes, he said very clearly, as if talking to a young child, and the Keaton says, "Well, I thought these were." They were regulation standard military coalition issued walking apparel,
yeah, yeah,
which is the description, obviously, the detailed description of these particular shoes that Foss wears, and that's a great example of language
yeah,
obscuring something,
yeah.
right?
The more language you add, the further away you get from the basic level of understanding that they're trying to make exist between them. So
Hmm.
yeah,
This is
yeah, I'm really
very
interested in
much.
that.
This is you have a very coherent universe, I find, Alia, in your sort of you're very consequential in your approach to stuff,
Thanks.
in your approach to the writing process. Now, our co-producer Shyla, who's also reading, told me that, and I put this slide up before we get to your reading. You jumped from genre to genre to genre. Now, Aaliyah, this is I'm not your a psychiatrist, but it's it's interesting that with your sort of coherent approach, you seem to be hopping from genre to genre, and apparently, reportedly, you have alienated at least one agent who has abandoned you as someone who cannot whose work cannot be sold because it's just not, it's just too much different stuff, too many different
I didn't
flavors.
want to settle. Yeah, no, I never wanted to settle to one thing, and I think that's because I kind of viewed genre as a toolbox, as a set of tools within a box, and I wanted to use them all. I didn't, or a toy box even. I didn't want
Hmm.
to just use one set of toys. I wanted to use them all. So I wanted the freedom for aliens to make an appearance, or for a moment of pure horror to escalate through something where it shouldn't be, in order to kind of put across the things that I was interested in.
Hmm.
Um, so, and communication as a theme is part of that, because we all speak these languages of genre. We all speak, if you're a horror fan, you know what's coming up. Um, when you reach certain points in a book or a film in that genre, you're very comfortable with the tricks of that trade, and you can use that, I think, as a novelist to kind of introduce. I think there's a bit in Skyward In where it almost sort of becomes a very classic horror moment in a graveyard,
Hmm.
um, and I I wanted to be able to kind of suggest we're moving into darker territory, but to not have to stick to that. You can set up the tools and then not necessarily go all the way to the conclusion. So
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, I
absolutely.
kind of like the freedom to do all of those things.
I like that as a reader. I don't understand why people, and I don't want to be judgmental about this, but I cannot understand why people want exactly a a sort of a formulaic delivery of something within a genre. I
Mm.
mean, I guess I sound judgmental as I'm saying this. I mean, it's perfectly fine to go to, to go to a good burger chain or some other chain where you know exactly what you're getting. But isn't that also really, really boring?
I
I mean,
sometimes
for
it's
for a
incredibly
writer.
comforting, isn't it? I mean, if I do find horror, I would choose to watch a horror film knowing every beat that's going to happen, in the sense that it's comforting, to me, in the sense that a romance is comforting, because you know unless it's really going in a strange direction, that you're going to get. But at the same time, I like to write things that surprise when they're in that genre. I just like all the tools, really, don't I? So
Mhm.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think what I hear as your psychiatrist, or some call me Dr. Axter, what I hear you saying is that you like to kind of consume these things, but you don't want to write them. You want to kind of hint at these things. You want to take these tropes, but then you want to
Yeah,
move into a different direction, and you want to kind of not alienate, but surprise people and kind of subvert these
yeah.
tools.
When I started off, I did have moments where I tried very hard to be particular in genre, and I thought, I'm going to have to settle down here and pick one and actually write but it wouldn't work. So there would become a moment where I would feel this is going to be 100 pages more of something I don't want to write, or this thing could happen, and that thing was so shiny and interesting that's the decision I made, because I don't I don't think there's a way to feel um, that you're going to be successful in writing. Um, I didn't feel that it was like a guaranteed model of success if I did settle down and write
Hmm.
accordingly. So in the end, I followed the things that interested in me more than the things that I thought that I should be doing. Yeah,
That's the way to go. That's
yeah. I'm
awesome, and
glad I did.
I,
Yeah,
I think I think you are. I think you followed also what your probably your personality really demanded. I mean, this is you. I said to my friend, I'm going to interview the Frank Zappa of
oh
British
wow.
speculative fiction novel. In a way, I mean, you can hear your. I mean, I have read only two short stories in this book, but that what I'm trying to say is that there's a voice, but there's also someone who just it's not enough for that creative person to find a formula and then repeat himself and be happy when the checks are coming in. So I mean,
I've
I'm not to knock on people whose whose primary directive is that
No,
looking,
that's great. If you can make that work, that's amazing, isn't it? It was just never going to be my path, I don't think.
yeah.
But yeah, absolutely, each to their own path.
Now we got to get to some reading, and you're going to actually continue with the first reading,
Yes.
where we were. And again, this is at the bar. This is at Skyward Inn. Oh, wait a minute. Soup Johnson. Yeah, Aliya. While I'm reading the chat comments, you can get ready, and magically a
Okay.
book display should momentarily appear out of the ground because this is Second Life, and it's not Zoom where you can't do these types of things. Boom, here you go. We
All
are in a
right.
real
So
space. There you
there we
go.
go.
And Soup says in the chat, he says, my dad would say, throw the spaghetti and see what sticks. In, but throw lots of spaghetti. So genre bent, I say yes, Aliya. There you go.
That's a good way to
Her,
look at
your dad is a national hero, or maybe even international.
it. Yeah. Is this
So
okay? Yeah.
yeah, perfect. So as long as you can read the text here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll make it big. The skull flower is so big. I'll make it here. Bring it up a little bit. Uh, so we're continuing this part here, which really sets the scene in a wonderful way. Um, yeah, what more do we need to know? Isley's from the planet that we mentioned, Kita, and Jem is the human, and here we go. Take it away.
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly from the point of the first reading. I think it's actually the next section. Um, it's a good thing to drink too. We drink. Here it comes. Here it is. The sweetness I associate with fields and the depth I think of as the sea. The soft light it brings to my mind belongs to the sky of Kita. What do the regulars at our inn see, feel when they drink brew, I wonder? Most of them have never been off this planet, or even out at the Westward Protectorate. They must translate it into their own experiences, which are no less potent, I'm thinking, just miniaturized, pin sharp, unshakable, mired in the thick grasses of the West Country moor. Jem, he says, you know Tulu, where the rock divides. Did you ever go there? I did. Did you look at the fossils in the heart of the rock? I fix Isley with my patient eyes. You know I did. I went to all the places with my leaflets. Yes, he says softly, your leaflets, your letters of peace from Earth to Kita. You put them up everywhere you went for us to find. He sounds so sad. I give him what he wants and what he never asks for directly. A description of his homeworld. It's changed, of course, but here, right now, in my words, it hasn't. Not for us, on our different sides, meeting in the middle. I say, I remember Tulu. Your creatures from your past, your fossils, are only shapes in old stone, so very far away. I put my hand on their outlines. I can tell you evolved from swimming organisms with long limbs and large domed heads. These were weighty bodies, leaving ribbed regular marks upon the rock, suggesting a shell. Your people have lost the shell through the path of time, just as humans did. Some things we all have in common. Tulu, the rock itself, a vast standing stone in a lake, was split by a great force, perhaps a natural event like lightning, leaving a clean edge. That too happened a long time ago. So there has been at least one act of violence on your gentle planet, a cataclysm of its time for those creatures that lived near it, around it. I was one of the first visitors to that place, and I was keen to suck up experiences of Kita, to better do my job of bridging the gap between us. When I saw it, I thought of how similar and how different it was from the earliest paintings made in caves here on Earth, long cordoned off from casual visitors. They are far too precious to be worn down under the weight of endlessly curious humanity. Tulu is free and open. I could never explain to anyone on this planet what it is like to have that genuine, amazing sight all to myself. I spent time absorbed only in the marks of those long dead bodies, frozen in the act of their own movement. They swam in perfect fractal patterns, proving what? That Kita was always a planet of order, even down to its basic organisms? I don't understand even now. I never have. I did not want to hang my message upon it, but that was my job, so I went ahead anyway. I used the nail gun to attach the leaflet, not to the rock itself, to the nearby tree. But as I punctured its bark, I thought, is this tree less beautiful? How long has it been standing here, keeping the rock company? They're an old married pair, and if I wound one, that injury will be mirrored in the other. I put these thoughts down to my own ridiculousness, finished my job, and returned to the base. I made my report, and the regular tourist rides out to Tulu started soon after. Military tourism keeps trouble at bay, I was told. There we go.
Really, really wonderful. This is Aliya Whitley White. Did I pronounce it correctly? Whiteley.
Whiteley, that's the one.
Jesus Christ, Aliya Whiteley. Reading from Skyward In, and this hints a little bit at the job that Jem did. She was on Kita. She was putting leaflets around, and we'll see
Yes.
where that goes. But also, what is hinted here at is that Kita was a very um, sort of peaceful, or is a very peaceful society, and this is a fascinating part of the book. It's ex- it's explored as we learn more, but in the very beginning, it seems like Earth discovered Kita, um, and Kita either surrendered right away,
Yes.
because of their peaceful nature, that they did not even comprehend what aggression was, I guess. And
Yes. Yeah. It's like the first act of misunderstanding between the two planets in a way. This moment when Earthlings arrive, bristling with weaponry, and the Ketans are standing there en masse and simply accept the arrival. So,
right, and then we
which I think
also
would possibly be very difficult for humanity to kind of understand in a way.
right, and they were like, "Hey, cool, we're the colonizers, and we want to extract some stuff," and they're just standing there, and that's awesome. And then later we learn um, different things about the Keaton, and again, I mean, it's so brilliant how the reader can fill in all these blanks. There's so much awesome breathing room. Um,
Yeah.
now, I was gonna. Oh yeah, we mentioned intentional communities. What does community mean to you? The Western Protectorate is this intentional community. Um, that's a term I don't want to get into defining it. You can look it up on Wikipedia. There's a lot of different definitions. It's a little bit utopian in the sense that or romanticizing that notion of back to Earth. But
Yes.
what does that mean to you? I mean, I can sort of sense a little bit conflicted feelings maybe on the writer's part, that you may
Yeah.
also romanticize it, but you also are not oblivious to the issues, because if you get together and then the work is hard and then conflict arises, and then I mean, it's
Yes.
not
Where
all
is there
just
to go
fun and
from that?
games. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If you define yourself as a community and then you fall out within it, you end up with these smaller and smaller factions, don't you? And if you've put up walls, then where do you go to escape from there? Um, and I think in part the book is about the act of defining yourself as a community in smaller and smaller spaces, but I don't see that it ever does lead to a perfect utopian happiness. And I was really interested in that idea of utopia because um, I really love a good dystopian novel. I've read
Hmm.
a lot of great dystopian novels, but a utopia is a different thing, a
And the
difficult
key to
thing to create.
yeah, exactly. And I think now that you say it, and because the Keaton society looks very utopian for everybody concerned, I guess. I mean, all the major players, right? They kind of
Yes. Yeah, so a lot of the societies are kind of viewed as utopian because you're outside them. If you're necessarily not part of them, then the act of just being on the other side of the fence makes something look really great, right? So Kita looks pretty amazing as this peaceful utopian way of living when you don't know a lot about their society. So, in much the same way that the Protectorate looks great, and in fact, you know, the coalition, which has all their technology, is creating these versions of the Protectorate for people to go and live in sort of a virtual reality type of way, because they've started to think of it as a utopia, which is fine because they don't have to live there and do the work. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's
this
always a sense of looking outside in, isn't it? So
this is actually a very cool aspect. And before we go to the next reading, Ava here in the audience picked up again the lovable body horror phrase. So folks, don't forget there's lovable body horror, and if people make T-shirts, we'll work out a licensing deal. Um,
oh great, yeah, put me down for one. That would be great.
I will make them and send them around to every book club. Or now
It's
this
very cool.
this sense of community, the alternative is the other alternative outside is the technology, is the individualism, um ultra individualism versus being there for each other and caring for
Yeah.
each other. I mean, now that you wrote this and you explored this, is your verdict, I mean, this is a super broad question, but is your verdict that a utopian vision, whatever you define it, but let's just define it as people getting along. You think that that's impossible?
I don't know. I don't think I'm any closer to a solution, but I don't write the books to find solutions. I kind of just writing the books to explore the questions in as many different ways as I can, because I can't make sense of it. And
Hmm.
I don't get any closer to making sense of it. But if I could, that would make me um, a sort of genius human being who solved some great problem, right? So I don't feel bad about not being able to solve it.
I tell
Maybe
you
it's
honestly,
unsolvable.
the, I I think, well, I think it is, because I mean we're still sort of debating if human nature is inherently violent or if human nature
Yeah,
is inherently good. I mean, Cory Doctorow has a great essay on this, and many others do too, about the actually the goodness and kindness that is at the core
yeah,
of what we refer to as human nature, and it just gets corrupted through these various economic arrangements that we're in. And I have
yeah,
to say, you may not have intended to provide the solution, but I, as a reader and as a fan of reading for pleasure, what is really amazing is that this book and books that I enjoy, and this is one of them, really lead me to reflect on and actually come closer to answering that question in a way. I mean, you really accomplish that by just presenting the aliens, the Ketons, and what they see as community, and how they value community differently from humans. It's just
yeah, yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I think I I'm almost not certain that utopia could be an end point, but maybe the important part is that an acceptance of that it's what we're journeying towards, and that's what brings a sense of community and harmony. So yeah, maybe it's meant to be the journey rather than the end point. Um, but to,
mm,
for you to say that it made you reflect on those issues and feel closer to those issues, well, that's job done. That's as good as I can get. So thank you for that.
a place where
It's
we
nice
can
to
be
think I'm
alone.
not the only one out there, worrying about these things and
Oh, I don't think you are. I mean, but also, I mean,
no.
full disclosure, I'm somewhat left-leaning, would classify myself as a socialist. So maybe, you meet some other people go like, oh my God, then I'm not gonna take Aliya's prescriptions. If a socialist thinks it's good, it's got to be crap. Uh, Vanderveer here in the local chat says Human Nature by Rutger Bregman is a good book. Yeah, that is on my shelf. That's a nonfiction book. I think I want to skip the second reading and go straight to the third because we're going to this.
Sure.
Um, we're kind of leading towards in this space. One other quick thing before that. What I really loved is that the Keaton's language is singing in harmony with more than one voice. So they uh, their native language is singing, but singing harmonized. So it's not a melody; it's actually a harmony. So it's a you don't go into detail if it's a three-part harmony or four-part.
Yeah.
But if people are
Yeah.
familiar with these musical terms, it's basically two or more notes at the same time that suggest a harmonic structure, a chordal structure, and um,
Yes,
that's their way of
it's not a
communicating.
singular. Yeah, not a singular language.
Hmm.
Which has yeah, which suits them. And the more you find out about them, the more sense that makes. Um, but there's something so beautiful about the human voice and the fact that the act of writing a novel, say, is an act of one voice. Um, Having said that, apologies to my editor and other people who were involved in that process, but yeah.
Wow, you threw them under
One
the
voice
bus
masquerading
quickly.
as many voice. I don't know. Many voices masquerading as one, maybe. But yeah, there's something very beautiful about a lone voice, but something so beautiful about choral harmony. So trying to find space for everything.
Absolutely. I mean, I took a
Yeah,
note here. I said, the whole their societal structure appealed to me very much until the very end, where I realized that the alone option is um, is not an option if you go for it. So the
yeah,
their respect, the Keatons respect, if you will, or their emphasis on being together as a collective appealed to me a lot. But I
Yep.
also, as a human being, or as me as Dragster, I need to actually be able to close the door and have sort of my own quiet time, and that,
Yes.
without spoiling anything, is not really an option in their structure. And then I was like, yeah, nah, I think I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go for it. So,
Oh, that's
right?
great. I do wonder if people get to the end and ask themselves, what decision they would make when it comes down
Yeah.
to the crunch of, do we get along with the Keatons, or
I mean, we
do
can
we be
totally go
human?
along, but we can absolutely,
Yeah.
but we can say, with all due respect, we can completely coexist, and your structure, your societal organization is amazing, but I'm gonna pass for now. But we can still,
Yes.
go to the movies
Thanks very
together.
much, but no thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not a forced thing. So yeah, yeah, that's interesting.
but that's what I got from it, because you end actually in I think your message is one of coexisting. It's one of it's not one of bulldozing the other one and extracting everything and just sort of absorbing the other. Actually, as I'm saying this, well, the other people like to okay, I'm trying to I can't spoil stuff. Oh my God, Alia, this is really terrible. Okay, everybody who's listening to this, just forget that I say the word absorbed. um Now let's go to reading number 3. Before
Oh
we go
right,
to
yes.
one question before, what is Jarrow Brew? How would you describe Jarrow Brew? Jarrow Brew is the drink that everybody drinks in here, and it has an
Mm,
amazing effect. It connects with other people. It connects with a
yes.
higher consciousness. It connects you to your own past and to your own future. It's like pot
Yeah.
and mushrooms combined with with a taste of Guinness. Or what is it?
Yeah, it sounds brilliant, doesn't it? Yeah. So it's a bit like drinking too much alcohol, but in a really great way without getting the hangover. But yes, there are elements where it connects you to your memories very strongly, and sort of hints to where the future might be leading for you, and very intense feelings of togetherness and friendship. Um, yeah, and it's all they serve at the Skyward Inn. So
Vanderveer says it's like ecstasy. I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with drugs. I smoked a little pot in my day, but I'm not really. I'm actually a teetotaler now. So, but yeah, Jarabrew, I might make an exception. Let's go to reading number 3, please. I'm going to
yep,
set it
okay,
up
here we go.
while you are walking towards it. This is towards the end of the book, where we actually get a glimpse of the planet where Foss, the teenage boy, is going to the planet, to the Keaton planet. And this is actually really cool. So his job is to they have all these simulations. They have these VR simulations of different environments, and he experiences a VR simulation of his own home village, of his low-tech village, and he actually gives it a really bad rating. And then his supervisor
Yes.
goes like, "Hey, why did you give like, didn't you grow up there? Why did you give it such a bad rating?" I thought that was so cool. And he says, "You know what? I mean, I grew up there. Obviously, I know how it is, and that VR simulation is not really that great." And then the supervisor
Yeah.
says, "Hey, go out and record stuff from Kita, from this alien planet, and record as much as you can with this guide, because we want to turn that into a really coherent VR simulation."
Yeah, so that's what he's been sent out to do with a guide who is a local Keaton. Um, so he's just essentially been sent out to wander around on the planet. Really, I think in a way because they didn't really know what else to do with him. He's a bit of an odd fish as part of the coalition. So yes, they've been out wandering around
Oh,
for
hold
a
on.
while.
We have a little audio issue. The audio went strange. Let's pray to the lords of audio.
I think it might have been. I think it might have been squeaky when I opened it. It's a very squeaky book for some reason.
Yeah, we get a lot of static. Alia, if I would ask you to exit only the Google Meet and come right back, and let's see if that resolves it. You can stay in Second Life, and I'll read some comments. So just exit the Google Meet. What else do we have here? Comments. Becky Chambers is mentioned. the thing about the difference between humans and aliens. You must get Becky Chambers on here. Jerry McNally, please elaborate as we're waiting for.
How's that?
And it's better and it's awesome. It's
Okay.
resolved. Now, oh, where are we? Reading number 3.
Yes, here we go. A pole was stuck fast in the ground. It's human, said Foss. It's military. Yes, it's where the white path begins. But it can't have been here long. I thought this was an established path, a trail. In the distance, part of the way up the mountain, 2 figures were visible, holding hands, Keatons. The guide waved at them, and they lifted their joined hands, then turned and walked away behind a rise of rocks. See, it said, it is a known path. Others are taking it. No, I meant, you can read the message, that will help. There was a piece of paper attached to the top of the pole. Foss stepped forward and flipped it over. The paper was neatly divided into sections. Chinese lettering filled one down one side of the page. The others were Russian, Urdu, Swahili, Spanish, and markings that Foss assumed were Khitan in origin, although he'd never seen a written version of their language before. The bottom section, smaller than the others, contained a message written in English. We offer the hand of friendship to join our great nations. We bring peace and opportunities for a brighter future, and we wish to share our knowledge and resources. A message of peace, he said. It felt standard to him, perfunctory. He could imagine many thousands of these things being dropped over vast distances, sent all over the planet, disposable sentiments for a conquering nation. Are there many of these messages, he asked. In this part of Kita, I know of a few. They make up the white path, but I come from here. I wouldn't know of other places. You don't communicate with Khitans in other countries? The guide said, let's sit. Once they were both settled, it began a long explanation with a patient air that could have been entirely imagined on Foss's part. It spoke of the planet not as a whole, but as many, many parts. It spoke of places where the weather was too rough to bear, where only the smallest burrowing creatures could live, and of places too hot or too cold for Khitans. Some of the creatures were without intelligence and some were clever. Some crawled, some walked, some flew, some swam. Some lived on islands and some in mountains. So many, but not any more here, just Khitans here, living in friendship, said Foss slowly. That's right, in friendship. We choose friendship at the end, now. Those who do not choose it go elsewhere. I didn't know any of this. He wondered how many people, humans, did know it. The planet offered huge diversity, and Khitans were a tiny part of that. You were very young, observed the guide. Perhaps they did not want to scare you either. Also, the young can be difficult. Sometimes they think separation is better. We have that on Kita too. They think they'll find answers that are special. They're not like those that came before, are they? It stuck out its tongue. Divisions between generations, another thing they had in common. Can you draw it for me, Kita? The guide began to trace symbols on the ground, radiating out from the pole. It drew with speed and confidence, and where it touched, liquid welled up from the earth to fill the grooves. The liquid was silvery blue in places and greener in others. It was impossible to tell what the colours meant. It was a map. The map grew and grew. So many marks. Foss stood back as the guide worked, moving outwards in a spiral, counterclockwise from the pole. The planet was a swirl that it created. It reminded Foss of the whirlpools that he had seen forming on the side of the boat and felt on his face as he walked the length of the tunnel. It grew larger and larger. At times the marks reminded him of mathematical symbols or of kanji or English letters, but they never made sense. Shapes too. A triangle at times, a simple drawing of a cat, or maybe a house. He wanted to find meaning where none could exist, for him except in the broadest sense. This was Kita. When the guide drew a circle around the hole, enclosing all the marks and stepping back from its work, Foss knew it for sure. Kita, a whole. Complex and diverse, and so much more than he had ever been told, ever expected. His mission was to explore Kita, and he now knew that was an impossibility. It was as terrifying and magnificent and unknowable as Earth. The smallest part around Tongue Base was all he could ever hope to visit. He wished he could record the guide's drawing to keep forever. Then he remembered Coach in his head and was glad. This would not be lost. Coach would keep it perfectly and show it to the whole of Earth. enhancing everyone's understanding of this planet. He knew he was being ridiculously optimistic, but he had to believe it. It was too painful to think this moment, this drawing, would mean nothing. Said the guide, then made harmonic sounds in its own language. We'll go further on the white path, and you'll understand better. Let's go forward. The liquid drained back into the ground, and the marks faded. Only the pole and the leaflet were left.
Wonderful, wonderful reading. Skyward In, out
Thank
now
you.
from Rebellion Publishing by Aliya Whiteley. And this is also hinting at, again, this sort of notion that humans know, as colonizers or imperial power, they go somewhere to a native population and they kind of immediately know who that native population is, or
Yeah.
they pretend to, they just reduce it. I mean, it's just so it resonates from, I guess, from a British point of view, from a German point of view, from an American
Sure.
point of view. I mean,
Yeah.
we're all pretty good at colonizing. Colonizers gonna colonize, as they say.
Yeah. And the simpler it is, the less you know, right? So
Yeah. And
we
Foss
reduce
here
it to
really,
land.
he tries to, he wishes to do it actually inadequate. I mean, he wishes to explore this in depth and also represent it, but he
Yes.
realizes they just want the Cliff Notes version, his
Yes.
superiors.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. They, much in the same way as they want some experience of the protectorate, but they don't
Mhm.
actually want the experience. And you were talking earlier about his boss kind of saying to him, "Well, why didn't you enjoy that virtual version of your home place?" And then I think later on he says to him, "Well, go back and try it again. You'll probably get to see that it is really like your home place." It's it's being persuaded that things are simpler and easier,
Yeah,
rather than
it's
trying
it's
to be interested in representing something that's very impossibly complex. So,
absolutely, it's really like hard selling the commodified version. You
mm.
like this, just try it again. We're going to hit you over the head with our marketing budgets a million times, and you will start to like the simplified version. You,
Yes, you'll enjoy the simplicity,
you will
the
ensure
ease of
exactly.
that.
We add the
Yeah.
simplicity for you, so it's
Yes.
it's it's more comfortable for you to consume. Siri
Yes,
says
because life shouldn't be difficult, right?
this is actually, I think, Alia Siri just got the subtext of what Alia was trying to say. It's the patronizing marketing attitude is what
Yeah.
you're actually um, almost satirizing here a little bit. Yeah, we're approaching already the top of the hour. This is amazing. Time flies when
Yes. Yeah, that's gone quick.
yeah, when aliens collide with humans.
That's great though, because time should move strangely in Skyward In. So
The time moves strangely, and also when when you drink the brew, time moves strangely. Again, from my time as a young person, when I did drink here and there at parties, it was the same phenomenon. You didn't
mm,
know if it was Tuesday or Wednesday, but let's not get into
yes.
that.
I do make, well, I'm taking the credit for it, but my husband makes home brew, and I have to say, time does move very strangely if you drink too
Oh,
much of that.
wow.
So that was probably an inspiration.
So I have here on my notes, I have here free will versus determinism or fatalism. We already touched a little bit on it. That there are some really deep things in here that people can reflect on, what is important to them. Sometimes I feel, am I reading too much into it, or am I not reading enough into it? And that's the beauty of reading. Actually,
Mm.
Molly here in the chat says, awesome, she just bought the book just now, Lizzie. This
Hey,
is
thank you.
the magic of the Second Life Book Club. I actually wanted to talk about in the remaining minutes about covers because uh, I happen to think that the cover artist of Skyward In, and if I can ask the camera to go towards the back of the room above the space station door, we have all the book covers that were not used. I wouldn't call them drafts because they're pretty fleshed out. I mean, they look really good,
Mm.
but I want your take on it. So there's one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 versions of the Skyward In cover, and only one was was then pursued. This is Dominic Forbes. He's the artist, and he put a blog post out about his procedure. And then what was used was a kind of an abstract, um, colorful version, the version that's on now. As
Yeah,
you can see, as the camera is moving over it, and we need a little time for the textures to res. Ah, yeah, they're resing slowly. There's some really nice ones with hands. I mean, hands play a
yeah,
huge role. So,
yeah.
talk to me about it. Riff on this a little bit. Covers. I know that authors usually don't have agency over their cover, and I know that Shyla told me in her research that you also had some bad experiences when you just started out. But how do you feel about these covers? How do you feel about this whole cover thing?
Absolutely love the cover for Skyward In. Um, which seems perfect for it in the sense that once you've read the book, you look again at the cover and realize there are shapes that have meaning within it. I think generally, since I embarked more on writing weird weird fiction, I've had some absolutely astoundingly good covers. Um, Particularly thinking of the ones for unsung stories early on, like the first edition of The Beauty or The Arrival of Missives.
Yeah,
Those covers are just stunning.
I love the beauty cover. Yeah, it's on the floor here on the yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and I'm always fascinated by what the artist takes from the experience of reading it or hearing about the book and then translates. But the Skyward In one is absolutely wonderful, and also the advanced review copy, as you said, just has the quote on the front as well, and I really liked that as an idea for the advanced copies.
Yeah, this is a
Yeah.
place where we can be alone together.
Mm.
Sorry, I know the camera is already coming back to us. Camera, can you go one more time towards the back of the room, towards the covers? Because can you go close to the cover on the uh, far left, on the top row, far left? This is one I also actually really like. I mean, this is very concrete. There's just a bench in the foreground. In the
Mm.
background is a farm. And here's the bench, and then there's the sky with colors in it. I mean, I don't know if you want to call it more traditional. Um,
Yeah, yeah, maybe, or at least it would feel more grounded. Like maybe it would hint more successfully at that aspect of the book, but then that leaves other aspects behind. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, I like
that's
the
right.
fact that it went for a cover that suggests that the more hallucinogenic elements of it in a way, or at least suggests that it's going to be a wild ride in some respects. Yeah,
That's right. That's right. Because of yeah. And if the camera can now zoom towards the right, there's also one with sort of Terry Gilliam-esque drawings of hands and brew and an axe and kind of a brain exploding world in the middle and a ship. What do you think about that one?
yeah. To be honest, I didn't see any of these before the decision was made with what to go with.
Ah,
But
they
I
don't
think
even show it to you. Ah, that's how they
no, I
roll.
the first I saw this was when the blog post went up, and
Hmm.
but I was really happy that they picked the one that they did. But at the same time, I loved all of the others and see how they reflect different aspects of the book. And I like the idea that there's so much within the book that could be reflected, much as you said, you found themes within it that really resonated for you. I hope there would be other themes that people would pick up on.
Yeah,
Also, like the romantic element or the generational kind of strife within it. Then
ah.
yeah,
So Alia, in other words, you're saying, well, Drexter, it's nice that you found like one aspect, but there's like a million that you didn't even recognize because you're such a narcissist that you feel like you understand everything. I know, I can read between the lines. Uh,
no, I really love whenever I speak, about Skyward In. People really want to speak about different aspects of it,
mhm.
and I really love that people take away different things from it.
I mean, that's really, I
It's
think, really
amazing.
the biggest accomplishment of any art. Again, I mean, I think we're belaboring the point that we can really see different things in it. And Alia, you have totally accomplished this with this book. I thank you so much for writing this, and thank you for
Oh, thank you.
letting me discover you. And it's awesome. Big
Thank
thanks
you for
to
turning
the
me into a giant skull flower. I
yes, the
absolutely
skull
loved
flower.
it.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah,
the skull flower you can keep. Um,
thank you.
let's briefly mention here this. It's on the table here from the neck up. Just real quick, when is this coming out? These are short stories.
Yes, September. That's coming out from Titan Books. It's in the UK and the US, um, and it's a series of I would say quite dark, possibly edging more towards horror kind of short stories.
Mhm,
Um, Certainly meant to be on the weird, unsettling scale of things, and they
mhm.
represent kind of my favorite stories that I've written over the past 10 years. I would say.
So nothing lovable. No
Very
lovable
lovable,
bubble.
totally lovable in every way.
Thank you, Alia. Thank you, our audience. And please let us know what everyone is reading. And I would like you to actually go over to my YouTube channel and put that into the featured video. What are you reading right now? Because that's what we're going to start curating it. I think Shyla has the link. Shyla, if you can put the link to the book trailer into the local chat. So let us all know what you're reading. You can also post it here. Um, what are you reading, Alia, right now? I hope the answer is
Um,
the three body problem, or I have to unfriend
yes, you
you.
told me I had to read that straight away, so that has moved instantly to my bedside table. But actually, first I have to finish. It was the last book written by Richard Brautigan. I can't remember the title off the top of my
Oh,
head, but I,
oh
I am
my
on,
God.
have been on a huge Richard Brautigan binge for the past year or so. So
Oh, Richard
yeah, I'm
Brautigan,
obsessed.
he gets mentioned all the time, and I have the what is this called? A Confederate General from Big Sur. It's the only book I have. It's a slim volume. Thank you for mentioning it. So we're gonna do a pact. You're gonna start a three body problem, and I'm gonna go to Richard Brautigan. Uh,
Frankly, I think it might take you less time to read that than it will me, the three body problem. But yes, let's do it.
I think
You
that's
read that
correct.
and I'll read that. Yes.
Jerry McNally said, I've just started reading Skyward In by Aliya Whiteley. You heard of her, says Jerry here in the local chat. Well, 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 we heard of
Ah,
a skull flower that resembles her,
we
but
did. Yes. Good choice. Mm.
it's an excellent choice. Um, so let me just thank our team here real quick. Let's run through the credits. Second Life Book Club is every Wednesday at 12 o'clock Pacific time. The email is slbookclub@draxtor.com. You can also ping Jared the bot. Jared the bot um, will respond and will respond to you and will get back to me with your recommendation or your critique. And I have a problem. I don't see my own credit slides now because they're not resing. So so let me look at the. I don't have them. I don't have them offline. So I'm going to look at the slightly delayed YouTube stream. The show is produced by Isabel Sharen, Shala the Super Gecko, and myself, location manager, master builder Ruby Geek. Avatars are made by Silas Merlin, Ruby, and Kralos. Special thanks, Marianne, Theanine, Brett, Patch, AJ McDowell, Arden Schwartzman, and all the moles at Linden Lab. Now, we got a whole bunch of sponsors, and I put the sponsor slide out here, and we just realized that Headhunters Island is not on the sponsor sheet, so shame on us. Now, Headhunters is a sponsor, and Headhunters is a maker of unbelievable Second Life stuff. So go to Marketplace and check out some of Headhunter stuff right now. Please, if you have loose Linden dollars in your pockets, put them into the tip jar. The tip jar is right here in front. It's that little sculpture on the side. Put all your loose Linden shekels in there right now, and they go to Shyla and Ruby, who work so hard preparing this show. I see Lysithia Moonite says, The Redemption of Time by Boshao fanfic. Yes, I know. Oh, I thought she's reading this. This has to do with the three body problem. enough three body problem. Please stick around in the post game because Alia will stay with us in the post game for another 20
Yep.
minutes or so and,
Yes, sure. Yeah.
answer questions.
Yep.
Now, the next week we have another Australian time zone show. So that's at 5 o'clock Pacific time. Please mark that in your calendars. And this is Angela Meyer and Laura Jean McKay. Uh, they write very differently, and we had a huge discussion if we should do the show underwater because Laura is embodying as a whale, or if we should do it in some sort of dungeon because Angela is embodying as a strange person with a weird mask. You have to come next Wednesday to find out uh, where the show is, but at 5 o'clock. Thank you guys, and I'll see you all next